Now, you can see Whitney better from Lone Pine Manor than Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
And actually drove down the little road a little bit off the main highway so you could get some pictures.
Up towards the Whitney Portal.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The little restaurant that's right there at 395 and Whitney Portal Road, what is it called? The Mount Whitney Cafe or something like that. It's a little A-frame building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's right next to the rock shop.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You're right. It is right next to the rock shop. Yeah, I love that place. You can see the smile on my. If this weren't radio, you could see the smile on my face.
But the neatest thing about that Schatz's Bakery is they had dark pumpernickel with no caraway seeds.
Really?
For many years, I thought I hated rye bread, and turned out it was the caraway seeds, not the rye bread at all.
Well, and we've gone into a search, and I think we can get it at Whole Foods. Real pumpernickel does not have caraway seeds in it, but apparently enough people were asking where are the caraway seeds that all the bakeries, almost all of the bakeries around St. Louis are throwing caraway seeds in their pumpernickel.
Yeah, that's the only way you ever see it around here.
Mm-hmm.
But I like caraway seeds, so I don't care. But, that bakery, they have a good Danish, too. I've had the Danish with the coffee up there. It's a wonderful place.
But I will tell you, and it was kind of as a side effect of having to come back down to Palm Springs and Palm Desert, when we were working around there the first week, Steve took us out to the Shields Date Garden, which is one of those places along the road that they grow the dates, and then they've got the little. Mm-hmm. And this place is somewhat reminiscent. If Lester B. Dill had been into dates.
Who is Lester B. Dill?
The fellow who basically started Merrimack Caverns.
Okay.
They have a 1950s era, was a slideshow made into a video called The Sex and Romance of Dates.
Okay.
In a dark theater, running continuously.
I was afraid it was going to show something about date rape in there, but there was.
But it talks about how they, put the pollen on the date flowers, and they, make little dates for their date festival.
That's a huge industry down there.
And they cover the female flowers to see that only the right pollen gets on there. They didn't bother to call those date condoms, but I thought they were.
I guess they could have, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we got back there on Monday, we did manage to eat some date ice cream.
Yeah, date ice cream is wonderful. It's especially if you've just been in the desert when it's 120 degrees and you wander into some store and you get some date ice cream. It's wonderful. I should mention that this is going back to the Palm Canyon on the Indian reservation. Now, those are not the commercial date palms, but there is a fruit off of those which has very little flesh on it. Little bitty ones.
Yeah, but they're all over the place, and that was apparently one of the major foods for the Indians when they lived there. Mm-hmm. And we haven't really talked about it, but there's the saying in the West that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. That's where the settlements were, and I imagine they had to beat off some other tribes if the word got around that there was water there. But that's why they were so successful, was they'd found this little valley that had this water flowing through it. And at least it's still there, although once it gets downstream from there, it appears to be getting used to water golf courses. But yeah. We didn't mention this, but north of Ridgecrest is a place called Owens Lake. It's on the way to Bishop,
right by
Lone
Pine.
It would have no water in it, except Los Angeles has been forced to leave some because the dust from the lake was causing such a problem with the salts and the chemicals that blowing around that they had to keep the bottom wet to stop the dust from blowing. But Los Angeles has intercepted all of the water going into the lake, and it dried up. Yeah, they had steamboats on it at one point.
Well, they did, because just the other side of Owens Lake was the Cerro Gordo. It was a big copper mine, one of the biggest copper mines in the world. And they'd mine the copper, put it on the steamboat, go across Owens Lake to Lone Pine, put it on a train, and take that train down to Los Angeles. But you're right, and then the city of Los Angeles decided to just steal the water, basically. And in fact, the movie Chinatown was part of the plot was stealing the water from Owens Lake.
Locally they're a bit annoyed because obviously it's dry, but that it's then piped all sent to Los Angeles in an open aqueduct, which loses an incredible amount of water just to evaporation over the 100+ miles that it's going to Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's true. Much of that pipeline is not closed pipe. It's just like an open chute, and it goes through the desert all the way down to L.A. That whole town used to be full of apple trees and plum trees, and it was a huge, huge agricultural center because they got their water from Owens Lake. Well, when Owens Lake dried up, there was no more water, and the farms basically died, and that whole area just was a shadow of itself by the 1940s.
Yeah, there's an excellent book called Cadillac Desert, and that's basically the story of the first Los Angeles aqueduct and all of the politics and shenanigans that went into making that happen.
Yeah. I understand why they did it, because Los Angeles was growing, had a lot of people, and they had no water.
Well, Joe, you want to tell them your favorite quote from John Wesley Powell?
Which one?
The one on the water and people.
If you know it, go ahead.
I don't know the exact quote, but it's about that there shouldn't be large populations because there isn't enough water.
Right. When John Wesley Powell was like the second head of the U.S. Geological Survey, and he'd been there. I mean, this is the guy that went down the Colorado River, right, with one arm. And he did a report on water in the western United States, and it was a serious government recommendation that they never put a town over about 30,000 people west of the 100th meridian.
Because there was not enough water.
Because there was not enough water. And we've got San Antonio out there. We've got Phoenix. We've got Tucson. We've got L.A. and, the whole coastal California. I mean, we've got Denver. Denver, if the mountains dry up, Denver's got problems.
Well, there's a for real campaign on its way for the whole West Coast to try to take water from the Great Lakes. I mean, people laugh about it, but it's for real.
They have asked to divert the Missouri,
from up in Montana, or where close to the beginning of it, divert some of that water into the west because the Colorado is drying up.
Well, that's again a case of dumb is what it's a case of, but they set up a system to allocate water from the Colorado River, but they based it upon an assumption of the amount of water that went into the Colorado every year that was too large.
Yeah.
And then they built these reservoirs, which loses water through evaporation like we've already talked about, but also they're in sandstone, and the water has flowed in, gone into the sandstone. I don't think the Lake Mead is sandstone. I think that's granite, but the Glen Canyon Dam is sandstone, and so there's actually less water available than there used to be because of these reservoirs, which were allegedly going to irrigate everything. Well,
Southern California continues to grow in population, and they've not built a new reservoir since the 1960s. When it gets to be a big rain, there's just hundreds of millions of gallons that just go into the sea. But they need to build, if they're going to have people there, they need to build more reservoirs, but they haven't. Now they're having trouble because they don't have the snowpack this year they did the last 2 or 3 years. There's going to be a problem this summer.
our behavior with regards to the desert is just plain dumb. One of the things that, again, being a biologist, one of the places where allergies amongst people were growing by leaps and bounds was Tucson. Why was that? Because all these people moved to the desert for their health, and then they took all their allergy-producing plants with them and watered them.
And so they have lawns just like they have here, so they have humidity just like they have here.
And so they have things they're allergic to just like they have here.
I talked to a lot of people who have lived in Southern California and the Southwest all their lives, okay? And they'll tell you that the humidity continues to go up because that's what happens. People don't move to that part of the country and have a rock yard. They want fescue, and they want oak trees, and they want stuff that's not native to the desert, which takes a lot of water. And then basically you have the same terrain as you have here in the Midwest. And it takes too much water, which is a commodity that they don't have.
And this has been one of the difficulties. I mean, the laws regulating this date back to the pioneer days when they wanted people to settle the West. Mm-hmm. And so there were all kinds of government subsidies, including these water projects, to get people to move there. Well, the problem is now there are too many people.
Yeah.
For it to support, which is why they're talking about the Great Lakes and the Missouri River. If you caught every drop of water falling over that area, it's not enough. Well, and there just really never should have been that. But it's like many things. It's sort of like the oil depletion allowance. The oil companies are making money hand over fist. Do they really need an oil depletion allowance? 150 years ago, when they were trying to encourage the development of the resource, it probably made sense. It probably doesn't make sense anymore.
Sure.
Well,
go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say I was going to drag the conversation from oil back to the La Brea tar pits.
Yeah.
How did you like the La Brea tar pits? First of all, when most people think the La Brea tar pits, they think, okay, this is a vast open area with mountains and playa and all this kind of stuff. But that's not quite what it is it?
No. The Sunday that we were in Ridgecrest, our friends took us down to over the mountains to the left coast.
Uh-huh.
And we got to see the aqueduct coming down the hill there.
Yes.
And the La Brea tar pits and the Page Museum is bang smack right on the shores of Hollywood.
That's right. It's right there,
literally,
in L.A. It is.
And
it is.
You know, there is a little bit outside where they have 10-foot high fences guarding these pools of asphalt.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like, a pool of it. Well, that's what it is, actually.
But
a tar pit.
Right.
Hence the name.
The museum is fantastic, though.
I've never been in the museum. I was never there when they were open.
They have got the best collection of Pleistocene mammal bones assembled. The only two places I've seen anything like it are the Smithsonian and the Field Museum in Chicago.
Really?
They are, you want a mammoth? Here's a mammoth. You want a mastodon? Okay, we need a saber-toothed cat over here attacking some cave bear. That's over there in the corner.
Well, because they dug all these out of the pits, and they were, I guess, preserved, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually surprised that they. I don't know what extent the tar pits were originally, but I was surprised they were able to construct right up to the edge of them. They have.
They do.
I would have thought they'd be, hitting some unsound foundations, but they built this big art museum right on the other side of the property, right up bang against the tar pits, and it's surrounded by streets, and there are other buildings on that, and I'm just sitting there going, is this really a good idea to be this close to these tar pits? I mean, the one major tar pit has water over it, still some. And the besides the tar oozing up, there's natural gas bubbling. You see it bubble through every now and then, and you're just sitting there going, should you really be having big